Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for sticking in. I'm Jacob Craig. I'm in the Department of English at the College of Charleston. Today, I have a collection of 5 student voices from a fall 2024 course called Writing with AI. Specifically, what happened when students who were deeply suspicious of AI were given a basic set of structured tools to engage with it. The story I want to tell is not really about AI, it's about students and their fears and anxieties and what they came to understand about both AI as well as writing itself through this process. I'm going to start with a provocation. In a Chronicle of Higher Education piece, an undergraduate named Terry described what he called a remarkable disconnect between how faculty think about how students use AI and how they actually use it. I think Terry's right about that disconnect. In many of our institutions, the conversation around AI writing tools has been dominated by detection and prohibition, by questions of catching and punishing. But students are telling us something different. They're developing real strategies for working with these tools that go beyond copy and paste. The missing piece in most of our institutional conversations is the thing we should care about most, students' own voices and lived experience. That's what this presentation centers. The student voices I'm featuring in this presentation came from the final reflections that they produced at the end of a course. Students gave me express written permission to quote from the writing, and their names have been anonymized. For some framing, I'll draw on Kathleen Blake Yancey's concept of the 3 curricula. She argues that in any classroom, there's the delivered curriculum, the one we think we're teaching, the experience curriculum, what students actually receive, and the lived curriculum, the knowledge, assumptions, and practices students bring with them. When it comes to AI, most institutional responses focused on the delivered curriculum, policies, syllabi, detection tools. But if we want to understand how students actually relate to AI writing tools, we need to attend to that third category, the lived curriculum. And the course I've taught in 2024 was designed to do that. To meet students where they were and trace how their understanding evolved through direct, structured engagement. When students walked into the course, they were skeptical, suspicious, and somewhat afraid. Jordan told me I really had a pretty strong dislike for AI in almost every form. I didn't see it as a useful tool. I thought it was unethical, to be honest. Maya described the broader institutional climate. AI was treated as kind of a forbidden tool, a he who shall not be named type situation. I've been too scared to even use Grammarly because I worried that its spell check feature might somehow get me expelled. And Sam's experience was pointing to a different barrier, not fear, but unfamiliarity. My initial understanding of AI was pretty surface level. I didn't understand that it needed specific instructions. Desiree, meanwhile, described the emotional weight of that resistance. It felt like cheating, like relying on a machine instead of using my own ideas and skills. These were outlier responses. Across 18 students in the course, skepticism, anxiety, confusion were the norm. Maya summed up the broader climate. I believe that AI was a tool for cheating. I think many of my peers could agree with this. That's what we've always been taught. Most have internalized institutional messaging that any AI use was inherently problematic. When I read across their reflective video essays, transcripts of the reflective video essays, their concerns clustered around a set of 4 themes. First, creativity and authenticity. Sam, his English major, was headed into publishing, worried that AI was taking away from the human element that makes writing so powerful. Second, institutional fear. Students had absorbed the message that AI equals cheating, to the point that some even avoided basic grammar tools. Third, reliability and privacy. Maya, for instance, raised sharp questions about data storage and copyrighted training material. And fourth, authorial control. Desiree put it, I was worried that using AI would make my writing feel less like my own. These were thoughtful concerns, and they deserved a thoughtful response. The response is what I'm calling helper doc-based prompting. The idea is adapted from basic professional writing practices, using style guides, brand guidelines, and content briefs that writers in tech, comm, and marketing use every day. Before students could work with AI on any assignment, they had to create helper documents that serve 3 functions: articulating their own rhetorical goals, establishing criteria for evaluating output, and creating a record of their process. In practice, students develop 3 types of documents: a genre guide where they analyze the conventions of their target publication, a style and voice guide defining tone and rhetorical approach, and a feedback template with criteria for assessing the output against their own goals. Desiree captured the spirit of this. It's like creating a detailed brief for a collaborator. You're establishing clear expectations, providing context, and creating a shared understanding of communication goals. Jordan, who began the semester deeply skeptical, described the impact of this approach. When I really took the time to build out a helper doc and feed it a good prompt with additional material, it gave me a pretty good article. I was stunned. The key insight is that these documents put students in the driver's seat before AI even entered the picture. Here's what this looked like in practice. This is kind of adopted from a HubSpot template. Instead of asking the AI to write an article about AI and jobs, the sort of vague prompt that produces a generic output, they crafted prompts grounded in their helper documents. You can see a sample here. Students attach a style guide, specifies a rhetorical goal, balancing optimism with realistic concerns, request specific examples, and frames the AI's task in terms of the student's own argumentative vision. The critical shift is in how students were evaluated. They weren't graded on whether they could hide their AI use. They were graded on how effectively they used AI to achieve their rhetorical goals while maintaining their own voice. Every published article included an AI usage statement documenting their collaboration, promoting transparency rather than concealment. One of the expected outcomes was the impact on students' confidence of writers. Cassidy's reflection captures this. Before this class, I thought of writing as something you either get or you don't. AI showed me that writing is really about strategies, structuring ideas, experimenting with phrasing, playing with tone. It made me realize that I can be a strong writer, not because I'm naturally gifted, but because I've learned how to make my ideas clearer. This was a profound shift from a fixed mindset about writing ability to a growth mindset rooted in process. My business major described how this extended beyond the classroom. I used to be nervous about writing emails or reports because I worried about sounding unprofessional. In class, we use AI to compare formal and informal tones, and I started to see patterns. Now I feel like I know how to write professionally without overthinking every word. Sam reflected on the same shift in terms of ownership. It's not going to take away from all the writing that you do. It's meant to help, and you can still use it without feeling it like your own work, because it is your own work. You just use it to cut out tedious tasks. Students moved from viewing writing as an innate talent to understanding it as a set of learnable strategies, and AI became the tool that made that visible. The course also transformed how students understood revision. Many had entered with a linear model of writing, brainstorm, draft, proofread, done. Jordan described this shift. At first, I asked AI to fix my writing like a glorified spell checker, but over time, I started using it to push my writing in different directions, more formal, more conversational, more research-driven, and then compare. It made me think critically about tone and structure in a way I never had before. And Sam reflected on how AI helped her address a specific tendency. I tend to overwrite. I'll pack my sentences with so many clauses that they lose impact. I started using AI to rephrase things more succinctly, and it showed me how much clearer my writing could be without sacrificing depth. I still had to make final choices. What was happening is that the students moved from passive editing to active recursive revision, using AI not as a crutch, but as a mirror for their own writing decisions. As students became more skilled, they also became more ethically sophisticated. Jordan's evolution is telling. Integrity isn't about avoiding AI, it's about being honest in how you use it. If I can explain my reasoning and my process, then I know I'm still doing the intellectual work. This is a far more nuanced position than where he started when he viewed any AI use as fundamentally unethical. Desiree pushed even further, questioning the technology itself. It's not enough to just check if AI gives me a good response. I have to think critically about where that response comes from, who trained this model, what biases might be baked in. Those aren't questions I was asking before. Desiree also demonstrated a striking self-awareness about the risks of over-reliance. At one point, I realized I was starting to rely on AI too much, and it made me less motivated to solve problems on my own. This was a wake-up call for me. I decided to limit how often I use AI so I can stay engaged and challenge myself to think critically. Students moved from a binary framework, AI is cheating versus AI is acceptable, to developing personal ethical frameworks that balance practical benefits with their critical awareness and transparency. Students also discovered AI's potential as a creative thinking tool. Sam used it to break through blocks. Asking AI to generate different angles on a topic helped me clarify my thinking. It's not about letting AI do the work. It's about using it as a brainstorming partner. Jordan experimented with voice and register. I had AI rewrite a passage in different styles, academic, journalistic, even poetic. Seeing the same content framed in such different ways helped me think more flexibly about tone, voice, and audience. But critically, students also recognize the limits. Desiree observation gets at the heart of it. AI can remix and reframe, but as it doesn't actually create something new, the originality still has to come from me. Maya, reflecting on this balance between tool and voice, put it simply, AI is only as good as the person using it. Critical thinking and authenticity are non-negotiable. This was a sophisticated critical thinking about technology, not blind enthusiasm or blanket rejection, but discernment about where AI adds value and where human creativity remains irreplaceable. Stepping back, we can see a clear three-phase arc in students' development. They arrived in a state of skepticism, deep wariness, ethical anxiety, fear of losing authenticity. Through structured experimentation with helper documents, they entered a phase of exploration, discovering incremental benefits while maintaining critical distance. And by the end of the course, they reached what I'd call critical engagement, sophisticated, ethical, intentional use of AI that amplifies rather than replaces their creativity. Cassie described this transformation. Writing effectively with AI isn't about replacing writers, it's about empowering them. The real magic happens when you combine its potential with your creativity. The Helper Doc methodology was a bridge that made this journey possible, giving students a concrete framework for maintaining agency within a rapidly shifting landscape. I'm going to close with Jordan's words because his journey encapsulates the broader story of this course. Jordan began the semester believing that AI was fundamentally unethical. By the end, he said, "I've been glad I took this course because it's warmed me up a lot. And not only that, it's made me feel a lot better about my future just knowing how to use it. I'm going to feel a lot better approaching that from some level of understanding rather than just a Luddite sort of attitude I had." The most powerful response to technological disruption is not fear or acceptance, it's nuanced, strategic engagement that keeps agency and insight at the center. That's what these students demonstrated, and I think it offers a hopeful blueprint for how we can approach AI in classroom uses. Thanks, and I want to acknowledge the 5 students whose voices you heard: Jordan, Maya, Sam, Desiree, Cassidy, whose reflections made this possible.